What's going on, everybody? I am Delusions, and I know yesterday's video was very quick, so I wanted to dive in a little deeper and explain some of these things and how I am getting used to ENE Dark Lord. I think overall it's a terrific class. It's got a lot going for it, and in some aspects it's better than the Strength Dark Lord. So what I wanted to focus on primarily, and when I get asked a lot, as I'm switching between different classes and I'm trying new things, is, how do I set up my skill rotations? And it's actually quite simple. So if you look here, let's go into our settings. So everything that I try to carry in my normal mode or my battle mode are all things that are going to trigger automatically in the background. And depending on the sequence that you put them in is their trigger rate. And as their cooldowns vary in, time, some will trigger on top of other ones, and then it just kind of just bounces all over the place. But on the initial start, let's say if you were using the normal, and this would be for all of your traditional PvE engagements or your world bosses or guild boss, that's where all of these skills here are going to come into play, and then it'll just go in priority or in the way that you have them ordered. So boom, 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 and then it'll just start back, and then it'll start triggering these all over again as their cooldowns refresh. And same goes for battle mode. And I set all of this stuff up to try to be as simplistic as I can, especially going into PvP. But even my PvE bar, these 4 skills are essentially all that I'll ever use. If I am, for instance, running through convoys, or if I'm doing Chrysos bosses. The only time that I ever really switch over to battle mode and actually utilize this bar here is if I'm doing loop recall, or if I'm doing arena, or any place that will lock me out of just utilizing the normal bar. So let's take a look at how I like to play these. Let's see if we have, okay, here we go. This will be a perfect example for how to use the battle bar. So we're going to go ahead and start this up. When I go into this, I always hit auto to get those skills rotating, and I'll pop Royal March. What this does is it will allow us to get skills flowing quicker, and then you want to pop your stun, and then once you pop your stun, you're free to kind of work your way through these bottom skills as needed. Now, I only use just these 4 skills along with Royal March. So again, I know that went rather quickly, but if you're looking at this in terms of timing, you want to, as soon as right before the match begins, you want to hit auto. You want to get your skills prepped and ready. That'll go ahead and trigger all of your buffs that you have on your character, which is going to be these 2 here. And then once you have that triggered, and as your character starts to move outside of the gate, you want to hit Royal March. In that time that it takes for your character to move from where you hit Royal March to wherever the enemy is, so say to here, so I pop Royal March and then I'm moving in. As soon as I get to that character, I'm going to be spamming Heaven's Punishment. Once I get Heaven's Punishment locked in, I want to then follow up with Ignite. This is going to apply a lot of burst damage and really, try to knock through some of their defenses. And then I like to follow that up shortly after with Blessed Shield. This is going to kind of give you that little bit of an overshield, a little bit of damage dampener to prevent you from falling. And as you start seeing your health up here, once it gets to about a third, I would say somewhere between 30% to 40%, you want to go ahead and pop Blessing of the Dark. What this is going to allow you to do is absorb some of that damage and convert it into healing. And what makes this class so special is this, depending on how you set it up, all of these skills are going to refresh themselves, and then they are going to start trying to trigger all over again. And it can really make or break when you're fighting these tougher opponents. And then before we dive into any kind of PvE content, I'm gonna see if my guild has any attempts left for, a world boss or something. That way I can kind of show how that works. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skills again on how I have everything set up. So as you notice, we've got some of the basic skills that haven't had any upgrades put into them, and the reason being behind that is you just don't need to prioritize these skills in any engagement. Now, yes, they are nice to trigger in the background, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're starting to talk about being competitive in the arena or just in general in any kind of PvP engagement, you're never going to use these two skills. So as you're starting to level your character, as you're starting to make these progressions and changes to inevitably kind of build this well-rounded machine that you want to be playing, it's crucial to keep in mind on where you're placing your skill points, so that you're not leaving anything out, you're not making any mistakes. And then you'll notice on here, Holy Eruption only has one. And the reason being is because you really don't need, more targets on this. This is primarily just for a quick burst finisher. And you'll notice that I don't have it on any of my actual button press bars. It is in the background, so it will trigger when it wants to, but it doesn't rely on me to um, make that push. And then as we go down, you'll notice how on Soul Shock, I only have 2 in there. Again, reason being behind that is because once you hit, or let's just say once you clear all of your Bellator fights early on in the game, you're limited to how many skill points that you can apply to these skills. And you'll always be left too short. There's not many classes to where you want every single one of these skills maxed. But once you hit, I want to say it's level 600 or 650, somewhere in between there, you will then be able to start acquiring some of these skill points. I think it's 3 per month, which again, I highly recommend you pick up 2, fill in this Soul Shock, just to go ahead and max that out, because again, having that cooldown reduction on this skill is going to be really nice, and then being able to negate that 5% defense when you're terrifying enemies can really help to seal that victory, especially on, again, tougher opponents or those that have a really high defense success rate, or just a high defense in general. I really think that if you play this class right, it's going to treat you well. And then as we dive into the properties, regardless if you're playing Strength Dark Lord or ENE or Energy Dark Lord, you always want to make sure that you're prioritizing the defense tree first, and you want to max that completely before you start moving on to the attack tree. And this is solely because of how squishy this class is in the beginning. Until you start progressing deeper and deeper into your properties, you're going to be getting hit a lot, you're going to die a lot, and it's going to make everything just so frustrating. So make sure that you're going through and you're maximizing this. I know that on this skill in particular, excuse me, there is a bit of a bug going on with this. It doesn't work as of right now. I know that it has been brought up to the developers' attention, and they are supposedly working on a fix for it. But until then, please allocate your points to this like you normally would and continue your progression in this tree. once you get into the attack tree, as you progress, you can do it just like I have, or you could go through and kind of go evenly across the board on being able to um, just level each tier evenly. But I chose to stick to the right side first, try to get all of that maxed out, um, and then focus on the left side. And the reason being because on the left side is primarily just stuff to help your element. And if you don't realize what that is, that's the third little pet that'll be following you around that doesn't look like he belongs. Um, but it can be really beneficial to you later on once you're able to access this side. Um, I have seen and heard people, start to put in different properties and stuff off into the common tree, but that is usually much later, once you've already completed your attack tree, going in here and playing around a little bit. But a lot of people will skip common entirely and then jump straight into elemental, because there is a skill in there or a property node that you really want to get. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I have it written down somewhere. I just have to track it and figure out where it's at. But let's see if anyone has a world boss, that way I can show the PvE rotation and how I do things, and then afterwards we'll try to dive into um, some runes and skill shards. But I guess in the meantime, while we're waiting, we could just go ahead and talk about runes and skill shards really quick. Let's see here now. My runes are all over the place because, again, I've been doing a lot of testing from Dark Lord Strength and then Dark Lord Energy, and then it's bounced from AGI Dark Wizard to ENE Dark Wizard, and then now I'm here. Um, but yeah, let's take a look. Let's go into here. Okay, so if you're starting fresh, of course, no matter if you're second tier, third tier, fourth tier, fifth tier, it really doesn't matter. You always want to try to prioritize your class's red rune skill shards. Um, Make sure that you at least get them if you can. If you're free to play, completely understand. The purples will do just fine. Um, but to be honest, you're going to have so many opportunities to pick these up along the way, whether it's through the Angel Pass or if it's through just any random types of events. But if I was to recommend any runes that I would personally try to um, push on folks to use while they're running this class, is going to be the Scepter or the Scepter Shard, probably the Sacred Shields Shard, and the Cracked Earth. Because not only is Cracked Earth going to deal a good amount of direct skill damage, but it's also going to stun them. So any benefits that you can add to that, especially knowing how the skill rotation works in PvP and how it's constantly trying to refresh itself and trigger all these skills over and over again, this is going to play a huge role in that and helping keeping that opponent not locked down, so that you can do the most damage to them. Now, as we progress over into our tier 3, again, trying to prioritize anything for your major skills. So Eagle's Fury, so the Eagle Shard would be really nice to have. Firm Faith is always going to be great, especially in those PvP engagements, because it's going to allow you to start building upon that damage reduction. So it just allows you to take more hits and potentially be able to regenerate that much more health from the damage that you're mitigating. Royal March, you know, this is a staple in any strength or ENE Dark Lord build. Um, Having this is going to be fantastic because again, it's going to be a skill that you're going to be using all the time. So why not benefit off of that skill in other ways, such as your skill shards and being able to gain that 1% boost to evasion chance. Um, and keep in mind, like you have 7 different pieces of gear, so that's up to 7% chance that you can then be adding to your evasion. Um, Judgment, I've seen a lot of builds that have focused the Judgment shard just because of how much damage that Tobias skill can do. As we start pushing down into our 4th tier, again, you're going to start seeing sacred armor again. So anything to kind of help build up your defenses um, is what you really want to try to chase after. Now you start to see the Heart of Brightness and the Proverbs of Brightness and the Hammer of Punishment. So reducing an opponent's attack speed is really nice, but at the same time, your skills are going to be doing that passively. So I don't necessarily recommend putting a whole lot into this. But when we're starting to talk about the Proverbs of Brightness and the Heart of Brightness, as we start progressing into those 600 levels, I feel like element damage is going to start becoming more prominent, and it's going to be something that we really need to focus on a little bit more. So being able to step that up is going to be really nice as well. Now, as we start pushing into the 5th tier, I don't believe that I've gotten the chance to play with these yet. I want to say that these come in through the level 600s. But again, I would pick up, you know, some attack reduction, attack boost. Let's go for attack speed. You know, you've got a lot of stuff. Any of these 4 here, I believe, are going to do you just fine. But let's go and see here. Okay, so we've got a world boss here, so let's go through the PvE rotation that I like to do. So again, I will always skip out of using this main bar, and I will only focus on what's down here, and primarily it's only hitting Royal March. As long as you're hitting Royal March, all of your damage is going to start over and over again. There's really no need for Blessed Shield because chances are you're going to be doing more damage and being able to resist more. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get them to run one more. That way I can kind of give a better representation. I know I've stretched this video on quite a bit, but again, I think this is some things that not a lot of people cover in depth, and I wanted to be the one to try to explain it to you a little better. So let's see how all of this plays out. So we've got another boss here, just a fresh one. So again, we're going to get out of our battle mode. We're going to throw on Royal March. This is going to get everything flowing. Now you'll notice Ignite will trigger on occasion, but we really don't need Blessing of the Dark or Blessed Shield. Now you could turn around and buff this up to really see your damage output. Because I will say that when I swapped from a Strength Dark Lord over to Energy Dark Lord or ENE, I was jumping leaps and bounds on my damage. So again, we're going to follow up with Royal March, and realistically, this is the only skill that you'll have to push during any kind of boss engagement, whether it's guild boss or world bosses. Or even ancient bosses. You can just run up, hit Royal March, and I guarantee you your damage is going to start jumping like crazy. But whereas with around the same CP, I was still in the 50 millions. I was pushing 1.1 to 1.2 trillion on Guild Boss, and now I'm upwards of 1.7, closer to 1.8, 1.9 trillion with just that swap to ENE Dark Lord. For all those that are still playing Strength, please don't change your class. You've got a fantastic build going with that class already. But that's just what makes Dark Lord so versatile, is because you can play either or and be successful. It just depends on how well you're maintaining your build, what are you using as far as your skill rotations, and then what can you do to optimize your gameplay in PvP as well as your PvE engagements. So we'll go ahead and we'll finish out this boss here, and then I'll go ahead and conclude the video. But again, in this time, I want to thank you all for sticking by me as I go through and build these different classes. I'm going to try to have a documented guide on this somewhere, so please reach out to me if you need it. I may put it in a Discord and just try to send out a Discord link, as needed for those that want to join. But please bring me your questions. Let me know what you have going on, what you're struggling with, even if it's not for any of the classes that I've played. I definitely want to help to see you guys be the best that you can be and go as far as you can, because I know it's a struggle. I mean, I know you're seeing guys that are pushing a lot more damage or this or that, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it either. So just keep on doing what you're doing. I think you all are doing great so far. And again, with that, I am Delusions, and I am out. Take care and have a good day.